Right, for the people.
All right, everybody, welcome. It is Friday evening, and you know what that means. It is
Woo!
for another episode of No Label Live. And today I have, I think, the only recurring guest thus far on the show, Mr. Andy Arias. He's an advocate and an actor, and he is someone who definitely is on the No Label Defines Me team and
Yes.
gives that message to a T. So, Andy, I know a lot of people who watch the show have met you before, but if they haven't, what would you like to say to those people?
Well, if you haven't met me before, you should look me up on Google. No, I'm kidding. No, my name's Andy. I work in policy. I've been doing a lot. The way I met Nathan was we were both advocates, young advocates at the time, working on disability policy. And I'm an actor, yes. I'm finishing a novel about my life growing up in foster care. And I'm just pursuing acting and modeling opportunities in California and New York, even though I'm here in DC.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes,
You are always on the go, that's for sure.
I
Um,
never sleep.
and we'll make sure everybody can connect with you at the end of this. But
Great.
so, what I wanted to talk to you about today is pretend when you're talking to me, you're looking at a younger version of you, right?
Oh, okay.
And
This
what
is
I
gonna
want
get
to
deep.
know, yeah, so what I want to know, because I've been
Yes.
thinking about this a lot, is
Okay.
what are the most important skills you would tell your younger self uh, you need to learn and practice and master to be the person that you are now? And then what are the skills you need to move forward into all those amazing goals and manifestations you have?
So I would tell myself to listen more and not be so quick to judge others. Uh, I was a little quick tempered when I was younger because I thought that was the only way people would listen to me. And I didn't listen to almost anybody. And that was a bonus, but it was also a deficit. I think in a lot of ways it kept me from opportunities that I might have had in my life.
Mm.
uh, and the skill, so listening more, the other skills I would say is accepting assistance from others, being able to be humble enough to know when I couldn't do something, and be gracious enough to accept the assistance. I think again it leads into the whole listening theory of not wanting help from anybody, which I think is systemic across the disability community. We're either gosh darn it, I can do it myself, or I can't do anything myself, so you need to do everything for me. And there's not a real middle ground a lot of the time. It's a lot of the disabled community, right? It's either one or the other. And I would tell my younger self, listen and allow people to help you when you really need it.
Man, so yes, I love both of those. And like you were coming at it from the perspective of disability with the asking for help. I think that's prevalent across the board as a human being. Uh,
Mhm.
we do not often like to ask for help for anything
Yeah.
because we think we've got everything all the time. So with listening and asking for help, let's start with listening. Uh, why do you feel like when you were younger that was a barrier for you?
Because I think a lot of people told me no in my life. whether it was because of how I grew up or whether it was because I had a disability. I had many families growing up in the foster care system, and so many of them said, no, you can't do that, or no, you can't you live on your own, you can't drive a car, you can't have a job, you can't graduate from college, do all these things. And yet I've accomplished so much, right? And I think when I was younger, listening to those voices pushed me in the extreme other direction where I just tuned them out, and their voice of negativity, or what I perceived as negativity, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was my young perception, and I can own it now because as an adult, I could say, holy crap, they were trying to help, and I was just like, what the hell? Right? But that's my, 12, 13-year-old self. I was trying to do it myself because I thought everyone was against me and my
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be independent. And I think that a lot of people with disabilities or marginalized communities, because if you don't know, which you probably do, and many of your viewers do, I'm also LGBTQ. So for those individuals, I think it's harder to stand on your own ground and be validated. So instead of listening, I would push people away and say, I got this. And if you tell me I don't have it or I can't do it, I'm going to push you away even more and do it myself and stand on my own. And it was kind of like, I'll show you, right? But the problem with the I'll show you theory is that one day you're not showing anybody anything anymore. And you have to get that motivation somewhere within yourself. And instead of saying, I'm doing this to prove a point, it's more like I'm doing this to be a better person, right? And that's a difficult transition.
Yeah, and so when you said that, what I was thinking was, if you say, I'll show you, like you said, at some point you won't be showing anybody. And I think it's because if you approach it with that attitude, eventually everybody will leave and
Mm-hmm.
to be around you.
Right,
So there won't be anybody to show, absolutely.
right, right.
What do you think made that shift for you where you started to believe what you now believe about listening?
I think that I just found a tremendous amount of grace with my faith and my spirituality. I'm also a pretty faithful person. I wouldn't say I'm religious, but I am very faithful. I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what sort of supported me through my young life, right? And it was a tremendous amount of grace that I had to like get knocked over the head with several times to say, you know what? You don't have to be this hard. This hardness will serve you for the moment, for the minute, for the time, but it won't serve you in your adult life. And actually, I'm almost the opposite of what I was when I was a child. Like
Mm.
my reactions to things are almost completely different. They're like, I'm much more patient, I'm much more thoughtful, I'm much more emotionally intelligent. Like, and when I look back at my younger self, it's not like he didn't have all these abilities. It's just that he needed to focus on other things to feel safe, secure, and validated. And now that I don't have to do any of that stuff, the grace has allowed this new, or this person that had always been there, to grow and have a purpose. Yeah.
All right. So if now we're talking about other young people who may come across this episode, right?
Yes.
What would you tell them, like if it's a tip or some type of tools that you've used to create that safety, security, and validation for yourself? what have they been?
I think listening is important. I'm not going to devalue what I just said, but I also think that having a sense of self in yourself. If you're a young person of 11, of 12, of 13, have faith in who you are, and be able to kind of discern whether someone is telling you something to help you or whether someone's trying to hold you back. Because I'm not going to say that everyone was trying to help me when I was younger. There were some people that legitimately thought I couldn't do things and wanted to keep me in a bubble. And I couldn't recognize the help versus the bubble. And so what I did is, instead of trying to discern, I pushed everyone away and said, screw you all, to the entire system that was trying to help me or hold me back, and say, I'll do it all myself. And I don't recommend young people do that. I think they need to figure out, have a list. These people are the people that are trying to support me, these systems, people, whatever you want to call it. And these people are the people that don't believe in me so much, and really know, because kids today, what I will say to you is, you're much smarter than I was when I was a kid. You have access to the internet all the time now. You have, it's just the wealth of information you have at your fingertips, and use that to the best of your ability.
And one of the things that I would say too is, if you're watching this, realize that there are people like yourself and myself who are available to share our experiences with you about what we've learned through our life. And you are, if you're sitting there and you're thinking you're alone, you're not alone at all.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that, because for the longest time in my youth, I didn't have people like you around, or I didn't have friends with disabilities. The kids I went to school with were either severely, how do I say, more impactfully disabled, right? And I couldn't connect with them. Or there were kids that didn't have any disabilities, and I didn't know where I fit. So I felt extremely alone, and I think that really fed into me saying, well, if I'm going to stand alone, I'm really going to stand alone, and I'm going to make this thing my own. But now we have examples like you, we have me, we have other people that are coming out. Now we even have TV shows about us. That would have never happened when me and you were growing up. Like, we didn't have any of that, right? There were positive images of us out there. And so I think for young people to hold on to that and to reach out to any one of us, that's the important thing.
And also, I want to say this, that yes, we are in a society where all people aren't going to have disabilities. So realize that it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. You need to find the person that you connect with, that you relate to their story, and that's who I would reach out to.
Agreed.
But I really like this conversation right now. What resources do you wish you knew about when you were younger that either didn't exist or you just didn't know about them at the time?
I wish there was better financial awareness and education for youth with disabilities. Like, I didn't know anything about not being on benefits for my entire life. Like, I thought, like, you get a job, you're on benefits. There's only two choices, and there was no in between. I wish that was something that I learned about and knew about. I'm still learning about that now. I'm learning about savings and investments and all of that. And I wish I knew that when I was 18, 19, 15, that, like, that safety net that I had financially, it's sort of false, right? It's not a real, it's there at the moment, but it won't be there in 10 years. Or if it's there in 10 years, I'm going to be living a very subset existence. The other thing I wish I had privy to now, there's a lot more opportunity for individuals of not just disability, but many different minorities to be able to go to school and be able to achieve an education much easier without the barriers of some of the disabilities that I had with math and other things. So if that stuff was available when I was in the middle of it, it would have made my life easier. Now, that being said, I don't think I would be where I am and be who I am without the challenges put in front of me.
Yeah.
So I really think everything happens for a reason. And if I had those opportunities early on, it might have been nice, but I might not be here, right? I might be in a different space. So,
Yeah.
so I appreciate the hardships as much as I appreciate success. I appreciate hardships as much, or maybe even a little more.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the only ways we're going to be able to grow. It's not
Yeah, exactly.
times.
We never grow if we do good, because we're like, that's easy, right? It's always like the hell that we have to like trip on and fall over that we're like, we're gonna do this. That we learn the most from. So
Yeah, I can tell you that through what I'm trying to create with this for sure.
yeah, I know.
Every
But
day
I gotta give you
learning.
props for that though, because you're doing, from what I know about you, you've created something from scratch, and it's very difficult to create something from nothing. A lot of people create um, variations of something that already exists, and you have decided, which is, I'm not going to go all inspirational quote on you, but it's very brave, and it has nothing to do with your disability. It's just you as an individual trying to create something from nothing. um, I just think that that's amazing. So props to you on that
Well,
issue.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know we've only got a little bit of time left on the recording. So, um, what message would you have, since we've spent this episode talking to young people, what message would you have for their parents or their guardian?
Oh, I'll try to keep it nice. No, what I will say to parents and guardians is, I know that you care about your young person, whether they have a disability or whether they have other challenges in their life. But the best thing that you can do is empower and support them to be their own person. Because if you're not doing that, you're doing them a disservice by having them rely on you. Because eventually, a decade from now, they're going to be stuck, and you're going to wonder why they're stuck. And if they're under your charge right now, it is really your responsibility to rise them up to the level of the human being that you think they should be. And because you're not always going to be around, and that's the thing that parents don't always get, right? They're not always going to be around, and their kids deserve an American dream beyond their living room and beyond their parents' vision, right? And it's a generational thing too, right? Disability in the 1980s and the 1990s looks very different from disability today. Even
Mhm.
disability rights looks very different than what it did back then. Back then we were fighting for curb cuts. Right now we're fighting for all kinds of civil rights internationally. So it's a very different time. And we need to recognize that and raise children for the future and not for today.
Dude, so that made me think that some kids are gonna see this.
Mhm.
So Andy was talking about how every decade is different, right? So if you're sitting here watching this, there's something that you know that the movement in and of itself needs, whether or not you join it through working or you're just an individual who has skills and gifts. There's something that you know that the older people don't know. And as I get older and like I'm no longer in the movement,
Right.
but what I do know is we can always learn from those who are coming behind us.
Well, I think, and I know you're creating your own movement, and I think the disability movement that we speak of needs to embrace all movements, including yours, so that people are able to not push us aside, because we push ourselves aside, and then we say to them, we want to be equal, but we don't want to play with you, but we want to be equal. And I don't think we need to embrace others as much as we want other people to embrace us.
Yeah, absolutely. Since you've been on the show before, I'm not going to ask you the same question that I asked at the end last time.
Okay.
But first, if somebody's watching this and they're like, I really enjoy this, which I know people are going to say that because that's what happens when we get together.
Yes, they do.
How can they connect with you?
So on Instagram, I'm andyswheelz with a Z at the end of wheels. So it's andyswheelz. On Twitter, I'm just Andy's Wheels with both Z's, right? And you can find me on Facebook with the hashtag Wednesdays with Andy, because I do a Wednesday show, a Facebook Live show every Wednesday, and that's where you can find me. Oh, and I'm building a new website. It's called theandyarias.com.
Nice. Yeah, I took a look at that. It's looking good. I
I'm
know.
building it out, so yeah.
Yeah, it's
This
going
is
to
going
be
on the
great.
website. So
Yeah,
once it's up, I'm posting it on the website. So
awesome. All right. So the question I want to ask you to end the show is, what's one label that every day you fight to rip it off? Yeah.
label. One label that I fight to rip off is, wow, Nathan. One label that I fight to rip off is dangerous.
Dangerous. Why?
I think when people see me, they don't know what to expect and they get scared. Not dangerous like harmful, but I think people get scared when they see me and they don't really see me. They just take a look at the outside and they think I'll be too adversive and um too, what's the word, diverse, and maybe too much for them to handle, right? Or for them to connect with. And I think that people get intimidated, and I think that's dangerous.
I like that you said that about scared and fear, and here's why. So this week I've been doing an Instagram takeover for diversibility, right? And
Mhm.
like the post that got the most feedback thus far this week is one where I said, if if I was a young person with a disability, the number one skill I would master is communication. The ability to use your voice to tell stories, to listen, and to connect with other people. And
Yeah.
here's some interesting feedback that I got, because when I wrote about it, I said oftentimes my experience has been when people with disabilities approach communication, a lot of times you hear the anger and the fear and insecurity come through. And it's almost like what you talked about earlier in the show, where everybody's approaching it as everybody's against us, when we're not really, in my opinion, we're not connecting with how the people we're communicating with view what's going on and how to create the story that gets them to see that it impacts them and they could be us. What do you think about that?
I think you're exactly right. I always approach disability as part of our culture, and whether or not you're disabled now or later, you will be. And so now when I speak to people, whether it's at work or whether it's in my personal life, I can't let whatever bias they have of me make me react to them any different. I've always said to myself, I don't want to be the angry disabled person, right? If I'm going to be angry, it's not going to be because of my disability. It's going to be because of some other thing that merits anger, right? But I definitely don't want to come off as the, I got it, leave me alone, don't touch me, permanent bitch face when I'm trying to get work done or trying to live my life. I want to be embraced by others as much as I want to embrace others, and it needs to be an equal partnership. We can't shout for equality while we're pissing other people off, right?
It's just not going to work.
It's just not going to work. There's a time and place for that, but we can't say accept us, but go to hell. It's a really negative, bad context. So I really think that in our disabled community, we need to reach out with love and acceptance. As much as we want love and acceptance, we need to reach out with that same offer.
Absolutely. Is there any one last thing that you want to leave the audience with today?
No, but I think you and I should have our own talk show someday. That's the only thing that I think would be interesting. Because you know what I like about us? We're very different people, but we connect on a sort of spiritual, emotional, molecular level that goes beyond labels, which is why I think your show is so great.
Yeah, there's definitely connection for sure from the very first time we ever met. It's just been there, and we are extremely different people for sure.
Yeah, we are definitely. All you need to do is look at our Instagram for 2 seconds and be like, what? That's why I think that what you're doing is so amazing, because it's bringing so many different people together in one unit. So
awesome. Well, what I want to leave the audience with is, if you are a parent of a person with a disability, if you are a young person with a disability and you see this and you gain value from this, reach out to both of us and connect with us, because we are in the act of service, and we want to know how to serve you guys as role models. And if you are not a person with a disability, but you know someone, share this out so that this message can go as far as possible, because someone's sitting there feeling alone, not knowing what to do, and they could really benefit from the conversation we just had. Well, the other thing is, as you know, if you're up to anything big, you must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit, because no label defines you. Your label should always, always empower you. And you guys can catch us again on next Friday at 7 p.m.